Receiving incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
I'm sure you have many questions.
Transmission.
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 Welcome to Transmission, a monthly show about the most impactful posts from our Meteor.js forums. My name is Paul Dowman, founder at OKGrow, and each month I am joined by Sashko Stubailo and other guests from the Meteor development group. Please note, the contents of this show are the sole opinions of their authors. This show is sponsored by Meteor Galaxy Hosting, a containerized cloud service specifically designed and engineered for Meteor app deployment. Learn more at meteor.com/galaxy. This show is also sponsored by OKGrow, an official Meteor Prime consulting partner building full-stack web and mobile apps. Learn more at okgrow.com. Welcome to Transmission number 21. I'm Paul Dowman. I'm the founder of OKGrow, where we help clients build great apps with Meteor, and I'm joined by Sashko Stubailo, and this week, special guest Jesse Rosenberger, not special guest, new host, Jesse Rosenberger of the Meteor Development Group. So, Jesse, first of all, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone about your role with Meteor
So I joined MDG officially in January, and with the direction of working on Meteor itself. And I'm working in hand in hand with Ben Newman on just keeping Meteor moving forward and getting issues worked out and new features added. And I've been working hard on that the last just almost 9 months now.
Cool. How do you guys divide up work in any way, or do you just both take whatever is the next thing and see who's ready to do it?
Yeah, I mean the work's a little bit staggered. If one of us finishes something, we just grab the next thing and start working on that. We have a rough list of action items in our head that we work through. But sometimes things come up and we just we fight fires, and sometimes we just keep knocking out action items.
Cool. Well, I was really happy when they added you to the team, so that's great.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Well, let's just jump right into it. So we posted the announcement thread on the Meteor forums, and there were a lot of things that were suggested there, so might as well start there. The first thing was somebody asked to know a little bit more about how it's going with growth and business, etc. at Meteor. So I guess just a little bit of interest in future stability and where things are.
I mean, I think things seem relatively stable. I think that Meteor 1.5 was a very big milestone, and we saw a very, very high adoption rate of Meteor 1.5 very, very quickly. So there was a lot of interest there, and overall, I think between Meteor 1.5 and like some of the later releases in the 1.4 series, it represents over 50% of the actual total Meteor usage. So people are upgrading very quickly. People are still interested in getting the latest and greatest and using what we have to offer in those newer versions.
Cool. Yeah, you guys have done a good job with backward compatibility, and we'll talk about 1.6 coming up in a little bit.
And I think the other cool thing there to mention is just all the new developments on Galaxy. I think new features are coming out on Galaxy faster than they ever have before, and that's really cool for the business side of things. And I think it's quickly becoming like a really nice combination of a framework and hosting platform that is going to be, I think, really hard to match. Like for example, the newest feature that we probably will have published a blog post about by the time this is out is actually knowing about your bundle size inside the Galaxy UI, so you can know whether it's going up or down with different deployments that you're making. Awesome. And that's something that I haven't seen as like an integration between a framework and a platform like that before.
Oh, that's really cool. You guys also announced rollback and version history, so that's really great. It's a nice thing to be able to do, and there's a really nice little feature where it'll warn you if you try to roll back to something that had different settings. So that's good.
Yeah, and there was also a new feature that was just launched that also will automatically roll back your deployment if it doesn't succeed. So if the build of the new container fails, it will automatically go back to the previous version. So
Cool.
it's a little bit safer than it ever has been before to do a deploy.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. Somebody else asked in the same thread about MDG's policy for long-term support.
Well, we don't have an official long-term support policy, but the work that we do on Meteor, pretty much everything that we develop, that we add on, or bug fixes that we make, we always take great care to make sure that we're not breaking existing applications. Sometimes we have no choice, and we try to make it very clear when we do, and we try to make a very easy upgrade path. But sometimes we just have to move on, and there's newer versions of dependencies that we use that we just have to move to, and we don't have any way of avoiding that. I think in the past we have made best efforts to backport critical features that are possibly being obstructed, like where you can't upgrade because of a breaking change. We have gone the extra mile to go back and backport something. Sometimes it's been in the past, like Facebook API changes and deprecations and stuff like that. But generally speaking, the upgrade path is very simple for Meteor. So the version if you're having a problem, the best thing to do is just upgrade, and it should go as seamlessly as possible if we've done our job right.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants things to keep getting better. So as something improves, you want that. But you've done a pretty good job of making it only be where really necessary. So that's good.
Yeah, and the Meteor versions, they're all out there still, and you can still you can store them locally on your computer, and they'll work forever. I mean, they're Node applications, and the Node versions that we release are still being taken care of by the Node Foundation. And I've recently upgraded a lot of applications that we use at Meteor from Meteor 1.1, 1.2, all the way up to 1.5.1, and really ran into practically zero problems. There was a little bit of migration from the old like Meteor Hacks NPM package for a couple of things, but mainly that was just a matter of removing and adding them as native NPMs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We will talk about 1.6 in a little bit, so that will be relevant. But I guess someone else asked about an overview of what's coming, so we'll talk about 1.6 and the roadmap changes that you guys posted recently for what's beyond. So let's save that for a few minutes. Someone asked about server-side rendering.
Yeah, server-side rendering was kind of a out of thin blue air feature that popped up because it was something that we realized we needed pretty badly, and it wasn't too hard to put in place. And Ben threw together a server render package in a couple days and publicized it, and people have started utilizing it already. And the idea with that package is to have like an isomorphic way of doing server-side rendering with React.
Yep. I guess I should clarify that
as well, but it was really focused on React. And recently, one of the members of our team, James Baxley, actually used the Meteor server-side rendering server-render package to do a GraphQL Apollo server-side rendering Meteor 1.5.1 demonstration at React NYC. And it was a very, very cool demo. And we'll have to include some links to it in the show notes.
Oh, so I was just saying there that it's React only, but you corrected me, I think. So that's you said other frameworks as well. So does that mean it would also work for Blaze or Vue?
It'll take some work to make it work for Blaze and also for Vue. I think it's actually, I believe it's probably more likely that it's easy to integrate into Blaze than Vue. I think Vue has a couple. It might lack like a render to string method that works like seamlessly with it, and Blaze right now lacks that as well. But it certainly should be possible to make that work, and we're happy to iterate on that. It was the first version of that package that we put out, and it works well with React right out of the box. But there's certainly some work to be done on that, and community contributions to making that happen would be great. We use a lot of React ourselves, so React works well for us in that.
Cool. So this is
Yeah,
not.
Go
ahead.
one thing I want to add is just like, yeah, it's not React specific in any way, in the sense that it's just a way to return a string from a function that gets put into your HTML. So kind of what Jesse's referring to is just that React already happens to have that feature built in. One of the things that I do want to direct people's attention to is that there are community packages like Vue SSR that do allow you to do server-side rendering with Vue and Meteor today, built by this really great contributor whose GitHub name is Acrium. I guess his name is Guillaume. He's French, I suppose. We actually just tweeted about that from the Meteor Twitter account, but we can also throw a link to that as well.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Very cool. All right. Someone else asked about or mentioned how nice Meteor is as a build tool for even a server-only app, like for example a REST API app or whatever. So I happen personally to agree with that. Sashko, are you still there? Your video is actually frozen for me.
Oh, I am there. Let me
Okay.
turn the video off and then turn it back on.
All right. There you are.
Yeah,
So
I mean, Meteor doesn't actually. Recently, we've made it possible where Blaze isn't even necessary on the server. So you can pretty much remove the view layers from Meteor entirely, and if you just use like static -HTML, if you need to have something basic there to like serve to the browser, but just using, I mean, Sashko has actually had one of the most popular REST packages that exist out there. It's the simple :REST package.
Yep.
And that's it's a pretty basic concept, doing the redirection from a route to a method. So it hasn't had to be updated very much over the last couple of years. It works quite well.
Yep. Or you can obviously add custom routes, express routes, and you can add obviously GraphQL. So you can add Apollo.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a big thing that we've actually added to Galaxy as well. So I've been saying, you should maybe write a blog post about some of the architecture inside our apps. But Galaxy serves some of its data now through GraphQL, and that GraphQL API is just added the same way you would add it to Express on the server side.
Cool. That's what we do at OKGrow as well. Like our normal stack is Meteor, but now with Apollo for almost all of the data. I say almost all because we're still using we're using accounts, which we really love. And so right now we're still using DDP for that, but there are also, if you really don't want to even have a DDP connection, there are also solutions for that. But it's great to be able to mix and match them together. Use DDP where you want it, use GraphQL where it's appropriate, and yeah, that totally works. Cool. All right. So moving on to some of the news that was big from the last little while. There was a thread about performance, Meteor performance, and somebody did a very thorough dissection of performance issues that they were having. So I think that's probably a good read to, if you are hitting performance problems and trying to understand it, I would maybe recommend reading that. I don't know if there's any comments you guys want to make on that one, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an excellent thread, and it demonstrates like some of the great work that can come out of doing like thorough benchmarking. I think it wasn't super clear to me if the issues that were being experienced there were necessarily isolated to where they were being tested. They could be things that exist anywhere, and we'd certainly like to identify. If I recall, it was mainly like. The performance was pretty good, except if you had like a whole bunch of users logging in at the same second, and then once they logged in, the performance was actually quite good, which is certainly interesting. That sort of behavior generally leads me to believe that there's some sort of database indexing thing going on, because really all the login is doing is accessing the database, writing an entry into the database, reading the session key back, pretty basic operations. So we'd love to see that, like a reproduction created of that, and something that maybe we could iterate on and find if there is an actual problem, if it's just an index, maybe there's just an index missing. I don't think it's isolated to the where it was being tested, which I think he was actually doing on Galaxy. But he said Galaxy performed very, very well overall, but that I guess the sizes of the containers were a little bit questionable about how much each container could support and theoretically should support. And there's always the question about people always wonder what an ECU unit is when it comes to like figuring out how much to put. And I think half an ECU is that's Amazon speak for what it is, but.
Yeah, and
it was great data, and it was really nice to read through. And I'd like to see it move into an issue, and hopefully we could figure out if there is anything we can improve on. We don't nothing we're aware of right now, but maybe there's something in there.
Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, it also could be there's a lot of initial publications that happen on the first pages they went to after logging in or whatever. So, but yeah, I think it was a good read. So if you're scaling an app, it might be good you might learn something.
Yeah, there were a lot of great tips in there also as far as like how to see better improvement. So it wasn't just like, oh, this isn't working for me. They actually iterated on it and found ways to improve the scale that they were seeing.
Yeah. Cool. I actually forgot something from the initial from the announcement thread, and somebody asked again about the feature of tight Apollo integration with Meteor, and we've talked about that one like a number of times in the past. Back a long time ago, long before 1.5 came out, one of the original plans for 1.5 was that it was going to be Apollo integration, and as I recall, you guys realized, well, Apollo integration already works, so that was kind of like the plan was changed. So I don't know if there's anything else to say on that.
Yeah, I think I can add a little bit more color, like kind of as a retrospective. I think there are a couple of things that came together. One was, if we want anybody to be able to use Apollo, and I think, to avoid, so one question is, how can we make it so that parts of Meteor are kind of the best in their class, right? So you don't have to feel like you're using something that, isn't the best option for every part of the stack that you're working on. So I wanted to make sure that Apollo as a data system was the best out there that you could get anywhere. And I think that meant that you had to be able to use it with any framework. And I think then when you're thinking about that, then, okay, what does it mean to have a Meteor and Apollo integration? Well, one thing that could mean is that in some way it's better to use Apollo with Meteor than with some other tool. But then if you think about that, why wouldn't that thing just go inside? It would either go inside Meteor if it's part of the overall environment, or if it's a data system feature, it should probably be an Apollo thing that you can use anywhere. And so basically whenever we thought of some sort of integration layer that could be applied there, it was like, it seemed to, in my mind, pretty clearly live in one place or the other, rather than having to have some specific functionality that's at the intersection of the two. I think probably the number one thing that still comes to mind that could be a little bit better is stuff with accounts. So it would probably be better for that to be a little bit less in between, where right now, like you said, one option is to use accounts over DDP with GraphQL to actually get all of the data. And having a way to run Meteor accounts or a similar thing. I know people have been working on some packages like I think one is called JS accounts. Being able to run everything over GraphQL if you want to, I think would definitely be a benefit. But it hasn't, prevented us from using GraphQL in Galaxy, for example. But everything else that I can think of is pretty straightforward. There's like a Meteor starter kit and documentation for Meteor integration with Apollo that's pretty extensive. I guess like the conclusion I would say, just looking back, is that most things that could have been part of an integration live pretty cleanly in one place or another. Like, for example, there's a build plugin that helps compile your GraphQL query files, which is like a Meteor package, right? It doesn't have to be part of any kind of integration.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're getting on in time. A couple more things that I want to get to. I want to save time for Meteor 1.6 and beyond, but I just want to mention that there was a really great post that I would recommend everyone to read about how Reify works. Anything that you want to say on that?
I mean, I think Reify is awesome. It's Ben's creation, and it's recently seen a lot of new publicity from John David Dalton, who is the Lodash author, and I started seeing him doing a lot of work on Reify kind of behind the scenes a couple months ago, and iterating on it and making little improvements here and a lot of performance enhancements to it. And basically he was trying to work it into what he just announced what it's becoming, which is the new, it's the STD/ESM module loader. And it's basically the way to have modern ECMAScript import and exports working just right out of the box. I mean, that's something that's not supported by any browser or any version of Node. That's, well, at least it's currently stable, and it works just right out of the box. And Meteor's been proud to use it for a very long time now, and it works very well. There's never been any sort of problem using import and export, and dynamic imports as well are all supported by Reify behind the scenes. And it was a really great read, great article by Ben and by John both.
Cool. So that's a core part of Meteor that is now like being contributed and is going to have an impact on the rest of the Node and JavaScript community. So that's great. And
yeah, it's taking off as its own fork, but it started off as Reify.
Yeah. And that's a post on the Meteor blog. Cool.
Yeah, definitely recommend reading it. It's a great read.
Okay. Now, yep. Sorry, Sashko. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say one thing that's kind of funny is I think it's easy to forget, but Meteor, I think 1.2 was one of the first environments where you could easily use all of the ECMAScript features together. It's something that when we first worked on it at the time seemed like a weird and unnecessary cutting edge thing, but really, really quickly afterwards, like everybody started using ES 2015 for everything. This is before it was even called ES 2015. It was called like ES6, I guess. So it's kind of fun to see more and more of like the modern JavaScript stuff, happen inside Meteor, outside Meteor, like more of a collaboration there. I think it's really cool.
Very cool. All right, now Meteor 1.6. So it's in beta right now. You can try it out. And
it's in beta number 24 actually.
So it's far along, I guess.
Yeah, it's been moving along quite aggressively.
Cool. So let's talk about what are the main features that we're going to see, the main changes.
I think one of the greatest features is the Node 8. I think Node 8 is it's the latest and greatest coming out of Node Foundation. It's set to be their it's an even number, so it's going to be the long-term support as of early October. It'll be officially released. We decided to go ahead and just go straight with Node 8 instead of Node 6 for Meteor 1.6 because we didn't see a good reason to wait around. I mean, we figured by the time Meteor 1.6 comes out, Node 8 is probably going to be LTS, and I might as well have the latest and the greatest. And with that, just a few days ago, Node 8.4.0 came out, which was it was actually a big difference over 8.3.0, which had just come out a few days earlier, because it made a major jump in V8 to switch to using turbofan and ignition, which are the new just-in-time compiler and optimization engine for Node. So it's going to be really great. It's faster. We are using it pretty extensively in our own testing. We're using it whenever we can, even if it's like just playing around. We load up Node 8 instead of Node 6 or Node 4, just because the debugging experience is so much greater. You're able to connect to it natively with Chrome developer tools, and even do like remote debugging over like SSH tunnels and stuff. It just works directly in your Chrome developer tools as if it was right there on your own computer. So that's really exciting. It comes with npm 5, which is a huge upgrade over npm 4, because it has its package-lock.json file. which is
Yes.
great for making reproducible builds. It's a lot like the yarn lock file. NPM kind of just upped their game and got that out there to, and it's a lot faster too. NPM 5 is significantly faster than NPM 4. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy about that.
What was that?
The yarn lock, I'm sorry, not yarn. I mean, yarn solves the problem as well, but the old NPM not having the lock has just been the biggest pet peeve of mine. So
I know.
For anybody that
the fact
doesn't
it's
know,
there now is great. I mean, the NPM's been great over the years, and the NPM team works really hard on stuff. And I think that I'm happy to continue using NPM if it does, like, if it's as fast as Yarn has been, if it's as like reliable as Yarn has been. And I think NPM 5 accomplishes that. And one of the other things that NPM 5 has is it has an npx command, which is pretty great. It's basically a way to run for NPM packages that have like a binary command or like a command line that you want to execute. The npmx feature will execute binaries that are installed in your node modules instead of ones that instead of having to install them like globally on your computer. Like a lot of the times you do like npm install -- global yarn, for example. Well, you could install that into your local node modules now, which is great. And you just do npx yarn and you would be running yarn. That might be like a weird example, but it's really nice to have that, and it adds on to Meteor's existing ability to do things like that. Like it's long been possible to do Meteor npm install -- global any command you want and have that installed into your Meteor version's dev bundle, so you could then use it by just typing Meteor whatever, and that's been really nice. But npx will make that even better. So one of the things that we're realizing in Meteor 1.6 is we're going to have to keep evolving the versions of dependencies that we have. So for example, Mongo 3.4 I think is on our radar now, and we are looking at upgrading to that. And Mongo is doing away with 32-bit support. They no longer have it. Even in the last version, you couldn't use, I believe, Wired Tiger with 32-bit systems. So we already had an exception in there where if you were running on a 32-bit system, we had to bring you back down to a different version of the database engine. But now they've dropped 32-bit support completely. So we hope that's not going to be too big of a problem for our user base. 64-bit has been around for quite a while now. I don't even know if you can actually just buy a 32-bit machine anymore. And like Macs have been 64-bit for quite a while now. Most server deployments have been 64-bit for a very long time now. And I believe most even home Windows PCs are 64-bit. So we're hoping it won't be too big of a problem. If it is a problem for anyone out there, start letting us know, because we have to kind of keep up to date with that Mongo version. And even though it's not necessarily critical, and you can actually run Meteor without Mongo now. Recently, there was a pull request that came in that actually added the ability to not have Mongo running in your development environment, which is fantastic. And we're happy to see that sort of separation. And for if you're running like a 32-bit version of Meteor or 32-bit computer, you may need to make considerations like that now as that technology gets older and older. So that's one of the downsides to moving forward with newer technologies, but that's something we're going to have to do. Cool. What else we got going on? We're looking at getting rid of the imports directory, or at least changing the way that eagerly loaded files outside of the imports directory works. So in the past, the imports directory was a fantastic way to kind of bridge the gap as Meteor moved towards the loading all of the JavaScript JavaScript files in your project and putting them into a global scope, into the imports-based setup where you actually have to define, kind of like put your main entry points in there and then use the imports directory to, which was not eagerly loaded. It was only loaded if you imported the files from that directory. It was a great way to bridge that gap, but in trying to align ourselves with some of the other frameworks out there and some of the expectations of, especially of new developers coming into Meteor, we want to try to move towards having like clearly defined entry points for your server and your client, and make it so you can define those somewhere in your application. The early thinking right now is that we'll probably have a way to define your entry points in your package.json file, where you can just say, start here and work your way in, follow the imports as you go. The imports directory will kind of hopefully gradually slip into the past that way.
Good.
I'm
of
course,
glad to see that.
If you don't define those imports, those entry points, then things will keep working the same way as they were. It's just if you do tell us where to start, then we will not take such an aggressive approach to loading all your JavaScript files. We'll just kind of follow the branches. Cool.
Awesome. And there's going to be support for some advanced React features. Don't know if we want to get too much into it because we're running a little bit at a time, and I wanted to save a couple minutes for talking about the roadmap changes that you guys have published.
Yeah, I mean, we're working out some of the details of exactly what we want to focus on, but we want to make Meteor a great place to build React apps. And I think that by working on like making sure server-side rendering works absolutely perfectly, and some of the newer CSS options that are out there, making sure that those work very well with Meteor. Those are things that we want to work on. So we're still working out the details, but the roadmap, which we should definitely talk about, is a great place to follow which of those things we're going to be focusing on, and provide your feedback if there's things that if React things specifically that you think Meteor could be a lot better at, because React is a huge view layer right now, and it's something that we need to definitely be perfect for.
Yep, I totally agree. Cool. Well, I'm excited about that. Well, so what I'm really excited about were some of the future changes to the roadmap. So for anyone that hasn't seen it, the roadmap is there's a markdown file in the Meteor repo called roadmap. And some of the things that we've just talked about are on there that are going to be in 1.6. But there were some things that got me really excited to see in there, like make the Meteor command line tool installable from NPM. For example. So
story of our lives. I think that we are making a lot of incremental improvements to make that happen, and it's a very active thought process in a lot of our team meetings and stuff. We're trying to like always identify the easiest path to move towards that. I know that one of our pain points right now is that it's a great feature for Meteor, but one of our pain points is the fact that we have this kind of offline package catalog for all the packages that exist in Atmosphere, and Atmosphere is it's great to have that locally because a lot of those installations are a lot quicker because of that, but we are basically keeping things in sync with a package server, and the size of that package catalog is it's fine if you already are using Meteor, but if you were like a new Meteor user and you had like say somebody wanted to clone an application that was on GitHub and quickly install it and start making contributions to it, the issue arises that even if you were to install Meteor to do that, it's not the smallest installation package size. Like it's definitely over 100 megabytes. And that's the package catalog is a big contributor to that, and that's gotten larger as there's been more and more packages, and we want to try to make that a lot more streamlined. So only basically involve the packages that need to be involved, and then go from there. That'll make it a lot easier to make it a possibility to npm install Meteor, because without that, then there's still going to be a lot of overhead. So
does that mean what happens to Atmosphere in that case?
Atmosphere will hopefully, if we do it right, Atmosphere will still keep working fine.
Okay.
I I think that there is an option there where there's a lot of extra packages and stuff and information that's being passed there that wasn't as much of a concern before the tens and tens of thousands of packages that we have in Atmosphere were there, but now the extra data is a little bit too much. So it'd be nice to slim that down and make it quicker to install Meteor from npm. And we think it's certainly something we're working to do very quickly. We know it's a big blocker to adoption, and we want to make sure that's not there.
Well, the other thing that got me really excited on that roadmap was full transition to npm. So yeah,
I think we've had that one on there for a little while, and that's certainly. I think the first thing that we need to do is get Meteor installable from npm, and then we can start figuring out what the options are for doing a full transition to npm. I think there'll be a period of time where we certainly want them both to be kind of overlapping and working. Again, we're always trying to make sure that we have backwards compatibility. So we're not trying to turn off Atmosphere tomorrow. I think if we had another place to host all those, we'd love to do that. And if everybody had moved their packages to npm, then that would be great. But that's obviously not the case, and there's a lot of legacy packages.
There are a few things. I mean, most people are using npm for most everything new, but there would definitely be a few painful things for now. So I'm glad to see that you're keeping backwards compatibility for.
I think
for the future.
Atmosphere isn't necessarily the first place you go to look for packages to install in your app,
right.
And I don't think it should be. I think it's got a lot of great packages on there, but these days npm has so many more and so many more well-tested and packages with just a higher amount of contributions and stuff like that. So npm is the place to go for if you're thinking about adding an Atmosphere package, definitely check on npm first. It's probably the same package, probably by the same author. That's on npm, and if you're an author of an Atmosphere package, try to get it on npm. It should be very possible.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jesse and Sashko. It was great to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, it's great talking to you too, and hopefully start using the Meteor 1.6 betas. They are progressing along. We're getting ready to release Meteor 1.5.2 pretty soon, but we are very excited about 1.6, and we can't wait to get it out. There'll be more content coming about that real soon.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
No worries. Awesome. It was really, really good to be here.
Okay. Talk soon.